Hi, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be speaking with Jeff Cove, manager of the Watch here in Lethbridge. We're going to have some tough questions. We're going to have conversation about what the Watch is and what it does for our community. So with that, welcome to Connecting Your Community.
Podcasting from Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. This is Connecting Your Community, building community through unity. Getting things done takes activism, and Blaine Higgin and Mallory Christiansen have come together to share firsthand community voices, bringing awareness to community issues, watching how other communities handle like problems, and sharing their successes. Connecting your community. Here are your hosts, Blaine Higgin and Mallory Christiansen.
Well, here we are. This is good morning, good afternoon.
Good evening.
It always blends. We're really excited to be able to have Jeff Cove. He is the head of the Watch here in Lethbridge. And I got to tell you something. There's been so many different comments and concerns and questions, and we'll get deeper into that later as far as it goes with the Watch and exactly what the Watch is. But first off, I know both of you have met each other because I first had asked the question and you started to tell me as well as Jeff had told me how you'd met. I got to hear it from you guys on how this happened.
Jeff, do you want to share how we first met each other?
So I go out once a week with my people. I put on my red shirt and I go out with them. And I was on patrol one day and we were parked at Galt Gardens, and there was an individual that I noticed. I was sitting in the backseat of the truck, and out the windshield I noticed this fellow who appeared to be intoxicated, and he was eating a hot dog. And I was actually concerned that he was going to choke on the hot dog. So I got out of the truck and walked up to watch him eat this hot dog. And while I was standing there watching him, suddenly there was a person standing to my left, and she said, "Congratulations on your new job." And I looked at her. She said to me, "I'm Mallory Christiansen." And I said, "Oh, nice to meet you." And I turned back to watch this fellow, and he consumed the hot dog without a medical emergency coming from it, so I was good. And I turned back to talk to Mallory, and she disappeared.
Yeah, so. Sometimes I just go around and I congratulate
and I think
people and say thank you.
It happens all the time with you, Mallory, too. I'll see Mallory, she'll pull up and she'll have granola bars and she'll be helping someone, and then it's like, "Oh, hey, there's Mallory." I'll turn and look back. Oh, Mallory's gone.
Yeah, and actually that day we were handing out bread because we had a massive donation and we just like to give back to the community. So, Jeff, I really personally want to thank you guys for what you're doing. And I've heard a lot. I've also been there where I had some stigma and what is the Watch really doing? Is this a Band-Aid solution? That's kind of what I went through until I actually met and worked and collaborated with the Watch, right? So I want to just bring to light first is this. This is what I carry. I carry an naloxone kit to assist individuals who are overdosing. And so one day I usually carry about anywhere from 3 to 5, depending. And I remember this day vividly. I used 3 already and I was out. And I noticed someone in distress. They're calling me, "Hey, Mallory, can you help?" I couldn't. I was out. The Watch came. The Watch uses something different than what a lot of us on the front line use. So can you explain to people who are following and listening what the different approach is for an overdose that you guys are trained for?
So we have had training to use the needles, but we use the nasal Narcan. It's 10 times more medication than in the needles. It's easier to use. One of the problems that happens with the naloxone kits is you have to draw. There's 3 vials in the kit, and you have to draw the medication out with a needle. And there's a little air bubble that's in the end of it. In a pressure situation, when you're trying to draw the Narcan medication out, you have to be careful that you don't push the needle up beyond the end of the medication. So there's a little air pocket that's right about there on the top of it. So what happens is, this is an intramuscular medication. So when the needle goes in, sometimes it goes all the way up. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening. So you have somebody who's not breathing, and when they're not breathing, they're going to go into cardiac arrest if they don't get attention right away. So you've got compressions on the go. For our people, we are on the phone to 911 to Calgary, and we're also on the radios to the Public Safety Communications Center to get assistance, and we have somebody who is dealing with an Narcan piece. For us, once you have the person you have them laying out in a position that when they can start breathing again, they can breathe, we introduce the Narcan into one side of the nose, and it delivers 10 times the medication. So it's like giving 10 needles, just like that.
And I always thought that a needle was always just more direct than a needle.
No, and it's not. That's intramuscular. So it's the mucous membranes that are in your nose, takes the medication. Your heart is still going. You might not be breathing, but your heart is going to keep on going for a little while. So the blood keeps circulating, and it takes takes the medication into the receptors to be able to clear them, to get the breathing started. There's lots of cases where we have to do chest compressions because we can't get a heart rate, or it's very faint, and away we go with it. But
and it seems that time waiting for an ambulance to come, it can only be like a couple minutes, but when you're there with somebody that is non-responsive, I can only imagine that.
And you
time.
can't overdose on naloxone.
And that was a question I had as well. I thought, well, gosh, that's
it.
10 times as strong. Can you overdose?
No, but you think about it, one shot up the nose with our kit is better than 3 of those kits.
Because this is 0.4.
Complete
0.4. And you guys are running,
4
yes.
milligrams.
So just on that topic right now, Jeff, before we get into a lot of the questions that community members have asked us to ask you, how many overdoses has the watch reversed?
So as of the end of August, we're up to 29. 18 of them have happened over the last couple of months. It's been a really busy summer.
Right. 29.
Yeah, we've been in service for 16 months. For the first 4 or 5 months, we didn't carry naloxone or Narcan. We didn't use any of it. We got it, and then we started using it, and then for whatever reason, we didn't keep really good statistics. It became something that we absolutely needed to talk about and to count. So we have, and of course during my tenure, I've only been the manager, I shouldn't say that, I guess I'm now the longest serving manager, but I've been the manager since February. And we've taken serious count of that. And it used to be a couple times a month, bearing in mind that these are people that we're either called for or, worst case scenario, we've had this, about half of these 29 that we have are people that are alone. Or they were with friends when they were using their opioids, and the overdose happened and the friends disappear. So if we hadn't come along, that person would have died alone.
Exactly. And that's something that we need to talk about. And we've touched on that with other podcasts where individuals have actually overdosed and died because they've used substances by themselves. And we also had a young lady outside, even, one of the organizations who actually overdosed and died right on the doorsteps, right? So, even for people who are considering using, is always have one of these, and always, if you are going to use, to have someone
Make sure
with
you're
you
with somebody.
or anything like that. But
well, even one of the worst things about the addiction piece is people don't understand how we get to addiction. So for a lot of our people that have become addicted, they have some level of trauma that's in their life.
Absolutely.
For Indigenous people, of course, we have the trauma with the residential schools and that kind of stuff. For lots of them have been victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse. Lots of them. I've had friends, that are my age, that are homeless and addicted, those kinds of things, and because of their physiological makeup, they're more susceptible to being addicted to things. And they go to college and they drink beer like we all did in college, and suddenly they're addicted to alcohol and move on to other things, and I didn't. And so they lose everything. They lose their homes, their livelihood, their families, all of it.
So now, Jeff, you're talking some serious dedication to this cause. And I say it this way because I know that I've known you for quite some time. We've had the opportunity, I've had the opportunity of being shot at by this guy in hockey, being a goalie, and I have an Edmonton Oilers helmet, so being a Calgary Flames fan, you can only imagine where he was aiming all the time.
Teams, gentlemen.
But I got to tell you something. I remember throughout that time, as you were an inspector here with Lethbridge Police Service, you were really looking forward to retirement. And so I was like, when all this happened and it looked like you're really enjoying your retirement time with your grandkids and doing some projects around the house, the honey-do list from what we all hear. And then I saw that you were with the watch. Now, I really need to know personally, because I thought you're really enjoying that. And I know that the dedication you've had over the past and appreciate the service that you've done here to the citizens of Lethbridge. What brought you back to the watch?
So I'd been retired for 6 years, and I had done various jobs. And it's interesting, of course, you get lots of opportunities in the community. People know you, and hey, can you come do this job? Can you come do that job? And I read the posting about the watch looking for volunteers. I thought, this is great. I was doing my own thing, doing a little bit of teaching in first aid and security, doing some home builder safety stuff. I'd been the regional manager for the Commissionaires for a while, but left that because that was a nearly full-time job. But I had some time on my hands, and I thought, the city's given me an awful lot, and it's my turn to give back. My wife and children volunteer. So I thought this is my chance to volunteer, give back. And so I phoned, sent an application. They had me in an interview. I went and did all the training just like everybody else.
That's amazing.
So report writing, note taking, cultural and spiritual awareness, all of it, verbal judo stuff, lots of stuff that I'd already done in police training and whatnot. But I sat in that first class with all the team leads and the volunteers, and that's what I did. I had time, so we asked that you give 4 hours a week, so one
Right.
4-hour shift a week. So I'd give 2 or 3 some weeks, and then have to adjust when I was away on holidays, and it really fit well into my lifestyle. And I had never intended to be anything other than volunteer.
Yeah.
Because
That was it.
that's what I thought. I was going to volunteer for some, give back to this community,
Yeah, as
and
long
then
as the watch exists, I'm going to volunteer. That's the deal. That's where I was with it. In any event, come September, I got recruited to do the Walk a Mile in her shoes.
Awesome.
I
That's
do
a great
remember
cause. That's a
seeing
great
that.
cause.
and being a little bit shorter, that did you give you that
It
extra height. You
worked
should have
really
maybe
well.
stuck with
So,
it.
and I have history with the Walk a Mile in her shoes. My wife was the president of the YWCA. And I was the first MC for the first Walk a Mile.
Oh, right
I represented
on.
the police service, got the police service out, got some competitions with the RCMP and the fire department, that kind of stuff. So that was all stuff that we had done. So we got there and we happened to be in the park, and I hadn't planned on that, but my team lead said, you should do the Walk a Mile in her shoes. So I said, okay. So I made a donation, got some donations from people
Right
that were
on.
there, put on the shoes and did the walk with them. That day, though, we lost our manager who'd been with us since the beginning. He'd gone on to other things. And we had a acting manager who she did an awesome job filling in and doing the things and keeping the watch running. And I was very happy being the volunteer.
Volunteer.
I was volunteer of the month in July, too.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, second month of operations, I was volunteer of the month, which was cool. Anyway, so our acting manager was selected to be a CPO. So she was going to CPO training. They needed to find a manager. And they'd recruited and looked, and then one day, I think actually it was at the Christmas party, she recruited me to apply for it. So I did. We were on our annual vacation in Mexico, and I got an email from home that said, hey, we want to interview you for manager. I said, great, when? And it happened to be the day after I got back from Mexico. So what did you do to prepare for this interview? I was sitting on a beach in Mexico.
Absolutely.
But in any
I
event,
would hope that was the case.
yeah, it was. And so, so I was fortunate enough to be selected from the pool as the manager, and I was able to put some skills that I'd been using, but not all the police skills and whatnot to use, and here we are today. So it's been a great opportunity for me to work with some great people in the police service and in the watch to help the police to take the watch program and kind of mold it and grow it.
Absolutely.
And you never want to be satisfied with what you're doing that day.
always room for improvement,
There's
right?
always room for improvement. And so I looked at it, and I knew that there were things when I was a volunteer that was like, if I wasn't just a volunteer, I would do this, that, or the other thing. But hey, I'm just a volunteer, so I do my thing. You try to give some guidance and help, and it's funny because when I was the volunteer of the month, they said I was like a walking encyclopedia. But to share that stuff,
Share that
but
information.
to actually be in charge and get to implement it, so it's worked really well. We have some really great team leads and some awesome volunteers that are part of the program. And anyway,
Excellent.
So
here
we're
I
going
am.
to get into some hard questions now, okay? And this is a nice, gentle one that we have forgot to mention. How long were you a police officer for?
I was a police officer for 29 years. I had done 11 different jobs over 4 different ranks, and I retired as an inspector. So I was happy being a pensioner. I got to do a lot of things in the police service. I was a detective. I was the public affairs officer, so I was the face of the police service for 3 years when I was the executive officer for the chief. I was a staff sergeant in charge of major crimes. I investigated child abuse cases and sexual assaults. I assisted on a few homicides here and there. I did frontline work. I used to investigate fatal motor vehicle crashes. I was the police service's first collision reconstructionist, so I had the highest level of training at the time, to a level 4 reconstructionist. And if somebody was killed in a motor vehicle crash, I dealt with it. It was a great career. I had one career, many different jobs, and 11 different positions.
Which
I
is
went
good
through.
too, right? Just get a
You
different
get that variety.
Variety, for sure.
And in reality, although I spent 29 years in it, I was actually like everybody else, where in today's world, where you only spend a couple of years at a job on average statistically.
And then go to
That's
something.
basically where I was.
There
Wow,
you go.
that's
Perfect.
awesome. Thank you for your service, Jeff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's get into some of the questions that we have for you. And I know for me, we had let some of the community members know that we were going to be hosting you. And of course, there's going to be controversy. There's different perspectives. I mean, we deal with misconceptions all the time, Blaine and I. But in any event, one of the questions that we had from a community member was asking why the city of Lethbridge is paying the watch $1 million if it's a volunteer-run company. Can you explain that to us?
So it's $500,000.
Oh, it's $500,000.
It's $500,000 a year. So the watch is a peculiar volunteer opportunity in that we require the volunteers to provide us 4 hours a week. The requirement, though, is that you also have to be able to walk, and it's not uncommon to have to walk between 12 and 15 kilometers every shift. So we don't get volunteers out. I also need 84 volunteers to be able to cover every shift that's available for an entire week, and I only have 25. Somebody has to do the work, and somebody has to be responsible. Yes, we have access to the police station. We have access to the police radios, which gives us immediate communication, those kinds of things. The level of training that they have from cultural and spiritual awareness, de-escalation, verbal tactical communication, those kinds of things, and the week's mandatory training. Everybody does. But when the volunteers aren't there, somebody has to pick up the slack, and that's the team leads, the people that are responsible. They're not paid a huge wage, but if you do the math on it, we have 4 team leads for 12 hours a day, every day. So with the people that we have, with the 48 man hours every day that we put out there on the street 7 days a week, paying those people, I mean, there's $300,000 right there. Add to that, the naloxone is not, our Narcan kits are not free.
Absolutely.
The training, the
That was a
uniforms,
question I
all those
had.
other things.
That all comes from that
Comes
budget,
at a cost.
correct?
So it comes at a budget. I get paid. I'm not there for the money. I'd be just as happy to be retired if it wasn't for the importance of having the watch out there. The uniforms, of course, the red shirts and whatnot that everybody knows. And I've had lots of comments from people. It's like, thank God you wear red. Because I can look down the street and see you.
Even
Yeah,
as someone who was on the front line
Yeah.
is, thank goodness I could see the red because I knew someone was right around the corner if I needed that extra assistance, right?
So of course, when they have this money, they said, "Oh, and you've got a vehicle. What do you need the vehicle for?" But you've explained that to me, and I want you to make sure that you.
So the vehicle is not a patrol
Yep.
platform. It's a deployment platform, and it serves a number of uses. So we patrol from Mayor McGrath Drive to Scenic Drive and into the park, and from 5th Avenue North to 6th Avenue South. It's divided into 5 areas. So whoever's working the furthest away from the police station takes the truck and drops people off into the areas, because you don't want to spend your time walking to the area. You got to work. So as the old guy, before we had the truck, for whatever reason, I always got put on the north side to 5th Avenue and 23rd Street.
Hey, the north side's a good side.
Which is fine to work. I mean, I worked as a police officer all over the place. There's nothing wrong with any of these places to work. They all have things that need to be done.
Furthest point.
I was one of the oldest. I was the oldest volunteer, and I was always sent that far away. So I had to walk from the police station all the way out there. And there was suddenly 30, 45 minutes. And yes, you're walking through neighborhoods, but there's people that are already assigned to those areas.
Right.
So anyway, so the truck we use to deploy, it also has our phone number on it.
Absolutely.
So if you need something, you see it that's there, and people have started to remember the watch phone number. And then the truck also serves the purpose of when we're out there, especially during the COVID pieces, when it was cold, when it was raining, and those kinds of things. For occupational health and safety standards, you have to have some place for them to go and be able to take shelter. The other piece, of course, is for safety. If you have the truck and you have somebody that you're having a problem with, and you need to break away and maintain distance and get away from them. I mean, you can go into a store or whatever, but if the truck's right there, you can go and do that kind of stuff. So it serves a number of purposes. But bringing up the truck, of course, from that budget, the truck, operating the truck, buying fuel for it, insurance.
There's another
all that
cost.
Stuff. There's another cost to it. So, I mean, even there is no volunteer organization that runs for no fee.
Exactly.
And I don't care who you think it is in the city of Lethbridge.
We've had the opportunity of interviewing many on our podcast.
Whether
that's
it's
exactly
by public donation or however it was for. I mean, I've made donations from the Cove's accounts to some of these other organizations as well, and
that's what they rely on.
They need money. They rely on that kind of stuff.
So one of the things I guess I ask is the north side area was hit really hard, extensively hard by drug-related crime, individuals who are going through our backyard, shooting up in our backyards. And unfortunately, the population is starting to wander again back on the north side. And I know on behalf of my neighborhood, we are so thankful for our police officers, and we will always be thankful, and we will always support our police officers. But why not put that money into actually hiring more police officers than a volunteer program?
Which would be great. Everybody wants to have a police officer on their corner, and that's nothing
Yeah.
new. Since 1985, when I first got here, that was always a thing. The difference, though, is that what we need to do is we need to separate the police jobs from the not police jobs. And we used to be sending police more often than not to things that are not necessarily police matters. They're inconvenient, or they're an annoyance to people, but they're not actually crimes. I remember when I was a police officer, especially when I first started, we had people would phone the police if somebody was not standing in the park,
Absolutely.
for example. And I always wondered, more so as I got older, but maybe not back in the day when I first started policing, but why would you not go and check on that person? Because maybe that person needs an ambulance.
Yep.
Let me throw this out for you. Almost 2,100 times over the first 16 months that we've been in operation of our 3,600 actions that we've taken, they have been events that could have been police calls. Somebody's horizontal
Absolutely,
in
I
the
see
park.
that.
And we check on them. It's like, well, this person needs an ambulance, or this person needs a ride.
Yep.
We've got services from the diversion outreach team, for example, over 1,000 times for people in the park where people would have called the police on those particular individuals.
Yeah, I
Or-
see that.
And the
I
cost,
see that.
and
And
the
that's
cost
going to
too,
reduce
remember that.
and reduce police's time
Because
versus
they're
being
dealing with
called
that
out.
stuff.
Because I
Right.
mean, I'm that person that drives by, and if I see anyone laying down on the grass, I feel like I have to go and make sure that they're okay. And so I guess that's almost the same example of what the watch does is let's clear up the police's time for these non-disturbing calls,
Yeah.
right?
Do some
And
more
just making
emergent.
sure that someone's okay. I see that now, and thank you for explaining that because that was one of our questions. So let's take a break. We're going to get back into some more questions for you, Jeff, as the manager of the watch, and stay tuned.
This is Connecting Your Community with Blaine Higgin and Mallory Christiansen. We'll be right back after these messages.
Freddy's Paint is all about saving you time and money with quality Benjamin paint and our helpful design and paint professionals. Freddy's Paint, voted best of the best 20 years running.
Freddy's Paint and Details, 210 17th Street South.
There's a new art shop in town.
What?
Watercolors, acrylics, pastels, brushes, oils, canvas, and paper.
Oh! Where?
It's new, the art room at Smith's Audio on 13th Street North.
For high performance sound.
And super art supplies.
Audio? Electronics? Try Smith's Audio, 13th Street North.
You need the best sound? Yeah, you gotta try Smith's.
Smith's Audio, 13th Street North. Electronics simplified.
Financing that has come from council. Can you give me a little bit of background where you're at with that finance and with that those monies to run this program?
So the money that we were given from council that predates me, so the people that were actually building the program was $1 million over 2 years, slightly more than $1 million, 1.15 million, I think it was, over 2 years. That funding actually runs out after Christmas, so the end of December 2020, the funding runs out. So we're going back to council with a presentation and proposal to seek permanent funding for the watch program because it was a pilot project. Now, as it sits, we're running the program. The money from that will come from council is in addition to, it'll go to the police service, but it's not currently part of the police service budget. So there's really nothing to cut to defund the watch as it is.
Because again, there's a
funded.
pot of money to understand that the police get this pot of money, and we do not tell, and speaking with a counselor's hat, how the police spend that money, because that's not the direction that we have. That is the commission and works together with the chief, but they spend that. So now this money is part of that funding. So now the police could actually come to the watch and say, you know what, we need this funding, maybe more for this than, or that could happen. But I think that there's some very good support for the watch throughout the police service.
If the funding existed permanently, hypothetically, yes, the police service
along.
could say, yeah, we're not going to have the watch anymore. In spite of the fact that City Council gave the money to the police commission to spend on the watch, we're going to make an executive decision, operational decision here today, and we're not going to fund the watch anymore, so they could take the money. But until the funding for the watch becomes permanent, in January of 2021, after we go to council, that can't happen because the money doesn't exist. So zero from zero is zero. So that piece exists there. So what we're looking for now is that I'm not saying it couldn't happen a year or two down the road. I don't know, but right now it's a program that we think is beneficial to all of our stakeholders.
Yes.
So regardless of what your service is downtown, what your life is downtown, if you're a business, a volunteer, an employee somewhere, if you're homeless, addicted, part of the heart of the city, the business revitalization zone, any of them, the police service, Sage Clan, our friends in the Sage Clan, any of those things, they're all our stakeholders and they're all our partners. And so that's been a growth piece for me over the last 8 months that I've been the manager. That's always sort of existed, but I've been working really hard to formalize those relationships with all those partners and stakeholders.
But just to add to that, when our new police chief arrived in town and we were doing the meet and greet, it was really interesting and introducing to some of the watch members and having the new police chief speak with them. And I think that there's a great support from what I'd seen through there on some of the different work that these individuals are doing. And I know our new chief wants to get out and walk some of these paths with the watch to see exactly what they do and the importance of the role that they have in our community.
Yeah. I think I've learned a lot too, especially even just with the funding and the use of the truck, et cetera, but also the additional training that you guys do. But I think one of the biggest things that I want to just highlight is the decrease in police having to respond to really little critical things that are happening, right? But in any event, we have also heard over and over and over again about, you just have white people volunteering with you. It's just white people who are targeting people in the parks. And I disagree with that because I've actually had many conversations with your diverse team. And, they're in every different faculty, addictions, they want to be in policing, so they're in criminal justice. Can you explain the diversity of your volunteers?
Sure.
And also even just the impact that this experience as a volunteer has to understand social issues faced by many people on our streets?
Sure. So the first group I want to talk about is the older group. So that was my group. So we were all people that just wanted to do something in the
more experienced. What would you call it?
Right. So people already have careers. They already have lives that are totally divested from anything in law enforcement or any of that kind of stuff, that just want to give. And we have some volunteers that are like that we can't keep them out of the office. They're there 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. It's just unbelievable what they give. And then we have groups that are from fish and wildlife, education, environmental science, that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of people that want to be law enforcement officers. From a diversity piece, so in 2019, we had 11 female members. We had 2 First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and 4 visible minorities. And that's changed and evolved, and we're always recruiting to get those people who represent the community. So we need the diversity, not for the sake of being diverse, but diversity for the sake of representing the community.
That's beautiful.
Because when you deal with people, everybody wants to deal with somebody who's like you, or who you consider to be like you, who can be understanding of where you're coming from, which of course is important, that regardless of the fact that, so I'm some late middle-aged white guy, but it's important that I also understand Indigenous cultures and all the other people that we're doing. So I understand, how did we get here? How did this happen? How did you end up here, and what can we do to help you, those kinds of things.
So it really sounds like you guys, even not only with the cultural training that you guys do, but you also take into consideration what brings people into homelessness, right? And that breaks the stigma in itself, because you guys are actually not only getting that training, but you're also able to understand and connect with the individuals who are living on our streets.
Which brings me to the biggest lesson that you get. So the ones, predominantly, they want to be police officers. So as it sits today, we have 24 female members, which is even better than actually what the police service has for percentage-wise, because we have 38 total people with volunteers, not including me, but volunteers, team leads, the whole deal. 3 First Nations, Métis, Inuit, 2 of them are team leads, and we have 1 visible minority. So the takeaway for them when they get there, because I always go out there and I remind them, I go down and see them every day, 10 o'clock before they get out there, remember to be kind to everybody, think before you speak, and those kinds of things. And that's key, because those that want to be police officers need to develop the best and biggest tool that they will ever have as a police officer, and that's the ability to use their 2 ears to do twice as much listening and talking learning to speak to people with your mouth and to be able to carry on a conversation, to initiate a conversation with somebody that you don't know, and actually get to know them and get them to talk about something that they know the most about, and that's themselves.
So I guess my question is, are the volunteers actually sitting down with the individuals who are facing homelessness, addictions, who are living on our streets? Are they actually hearing that firsthand information? Because that's a stigma you guys have too. And I want to break that, because I see your volunteers sitting down with many individuals. So tell us how you've kind of changed that approach with your volunteers.
So we ask them, we have conversations with them. I remember having a great conversations one time with my friend Mark Braverock about, his time when he was homeless and whatnot, and where he came from and his story, because Mark and I have known each other for many, many years. Yeah. And he likes to tease me about that, but nonetheless,
he's a testimony.
Yes, he's a success story, and his group is just unbelievable with the work that they do. But having our people sit down and have conversations with people. So you ask them, how did you get here? What did you do before you came here? What did you do? So we learn about people about their families, about what they did for a living. We have a lady who lives on the street who has a master's degree in education. Yep. We have people who have lots of education. We have people that were on our street that we know common people. They're associated with the college. They were students in college, and they had lives, and one thing led to another, be it an injury of some kind, trauma in their life, or whatever. They ended up getting addicted. They get onto the streets, and away they go. And it's about building those kinds of relationships and learning and understanding and having people. You would be amazed the number of people that if you sit down and you just ask them, they'll talk to you. Absolutely, and I regret to say that it's not something that I did earlier in my policing career that I've really taken on now. I wish I'd done it 20 years ago, but you know what? You make up for lost time. You do these things and you learn those things. So those are all things that I have those conversations with these people that I work with, so that they make those connections with the people on the street. We've had lots of people that we've had connections with that have passed away, unfortunately. Yep. There's lots of people that we've saved with our Narcan that we talked about earlier, just to give them that one chance that maybe this is the time that they're going to get saved. And so those are all things that we do, and by connecting with those people, we had a card actually. We had a individual that we built a relationship who regrettably passed away, and we've had lots of people that we deal with, and it breaks my heart to have to tell people that so and so has passed away when I go down to brief a team before they go on shift. So it's difficult, but at the end of the day, you hope that you're going to be that one person to do that. But we got a thank you card from one individual's mom. From Montana, thanking us for looking after her son when she couldn't. So that's a statement there. I just don't think you guys get the credit and even the recognition of the work that you guys are doing. So I just want to say thank you.
And you know what? It comes back to I went back to the volunteers that you're saying that you get the different volunteers that are coming, and a lot of them are from the criminal justice program. Yep. Now, what I found with this lady, and speaking to a few of them, is it's really a way to see what is done throughout our community. And so it's policing, and I know that a lot of people say, well, it's not true policing, but no, policing had a lot of these issues around. And so being able to see some of this, and even the connection with those officers on a regular basis, tell me a little bit about how this has helped these students in our college.
Yeah, so So I've got lots of them that are actually doing practicums while they work with the watch, and some of them are employed, so they're also doing directed studies. And the best part is I get to participate in helping them with their assignments. It's just something that I've taken on, which really wasn't part of what I'm supposed to do, but I'm given an opportunity to ask questions, and it's an ability to coach and mentor somebody. And so I have an effect on people that are going to be policing in our community one day. So they see these things, and so as time has evolved, lots of things got dumped on the police, and I think that was where part of the defund the police thing came. Take the stuff away from the police that's not police-related real stuff and stuff that we're doing.
Which is some of this.
Some of this. So they get to see these things, and knowing that and having these experiences, and in some cases, coming out of the box with a connection. So you finish recruit training, you do your training and whatnot, and it's like, hey, I know you. It's like, hey, oh, you're a police officer now. You wouldn't believe the number of people that when I'm walking around, they'll say to me, you used to be a police officer. And it's like,
sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Actually, you know what? I've never had a negative situation.
Oh, good.
That's great. That's
there was
great.
this one lady, it was her birthday. So if it's your birthday and I find out, I sing you happy birthday in the park. And I've done that a few times.
You got a pretty good set of lungs, actually.
I did this for one lady, and her son was there. She said to me, it's my mom's birthday. You should say happy birthday to her. And I said, I'll go you one better. Can I sing happy birthday to your mom? He said, sure. So I sang happy birthday to her. And then her son looked at me, literally paused. He looked at me, and then he came out with, you used to be a police officer.
Because he remembered.
He suddenly remembered that I was a police officer. And I said, well, that was a long time ago. He goes, no, I remember you because you helped me when he'd been stabbed some other place in the city, and I helped him. And I also...
And it's the
same guy.
Wow.
And I don't really remember it. I mean... You
go through a lot of things. Oh, absolutely.
And he said, no, it was you. And he was in a motor vehicle crash. He says, our car got totaled and you helped us get rides and do all those things again. And so I say to him, I'm really glad that you remember that. I'm sorry I don't remember it, but I'm glad that I could do something positive for you.
Right.
And he was really happy that I sang happy birthday to his mom. First day out on the road in Gulf Gardens. It was somebody's birthday. They had a birthday cake there, but nobody was singing happy birthday to the lady whose birthday it was. So I did. And it's funny because we had the media with us that day.
And that's the watch.
I was in the story, the watch guy singing happy birthday to him. But anyway, so it's just those little itty bitty things
that make a difference.
And everybody who sees us do that or sees me do those things, that's important.
They feel like someone, and someone cares for them, and that's all it takes.
And team leads that are with me that see me and see somebody will say, "Hey, you're a police officer, and you did this for me, and you did that for me." And so far, I've never had a negative thing come out from them. But I tell them, it's like, you know what? That's the thing. 20 years later, this person still remembers me and has positive things to say about something I did, how I helped them, those kinds of things. That's the goal, and that's the takeaway, and that's what I want to leave with all these people that are in criminal justice that are part of the watch. Your goal is to do your job, serve the public, be of the public interest, deal with everybody fairly and equitably, and 20 years down the road, have somebody come back and say, you're that police officer, and you did this for me, thank you very much, because that happened a number of times, and it happens every day.
It's okay to say thank you to a police officer. Sure. It's okay to, when you see them, man, thank you so much. Like, I know for myself, just even when you're talking about that whole defunding piece is, if I didn't have 911 on speed dial to have an officer in some of the situations that I was in, I may or may not be here right now.
Right.
And that's what I think about. Like, I've had to walk into houses, even being refused unsafe work. 5 guys high on meth, 200 pounds. If I didn't have a police officer, right, I don't know if I'd be here right now. So I just, going back to that whole, I'm grateful. And I'm grateful that future officers have this opportunity to engage and collaborate with individuals on our street, but also to kind of get that experience where what they're coming into. So
spin back to what we do in taking work away, this not police work that we are doing in place of the police. Your situation, the police officer's tied up doing something that was inconvenient or irritating rather than
And here I am
available.
with 5 guys high on meth. And, I will vividly always remember the 2 officers that showed up because it's doors getting, it's making sure that that person and those people in that house are safe. Yeah. Right? So,
So, you know what? This is one of these ones we've talked numerous times before. It could be like part 1 of 6. This is it's amazing, and I've been so blessed to have the opportunity to hear from the watch on quite a few occasions as they come into council, and then obviously to speak with yourself, Jeff. And I'm going to get out and put on these hiking boots, and I do want to see part of this, and I'm really excited to do that, just to be able to see exactly some of the work it is, because sometimes it's difficult to hear what you do without maybe going in and volunteering and actually seeing some of that work that's being done. So I guess in closing, I do want to find out if there's anything else that you have to say as far as how the watch is assisting our community. I know we've talked about it a lot and we've touched on a lot of different things. Is there anything else that maybe we've have left out? And I'm sure there is, but just off the top of your head?
I think it's important that everybody understands that when the watch is out doing what the watch does, there are lots of other places that look like they do the same things we do, but they don't because of hours, because of who their stakeholders and clientele can be, who the people they serve are. So our work is different. There's actually no 2 organizations that are out there doing the same work. They're doing similar work, but not the same work. And lots of times they're there they complement what you're doing. Sometimes some are in there to help where other ones are doing a particular task and they might need somebody else. Like we work closely with the Sage Clan lots of times now. For example, if they need to find somebody and we're out, they'll let us know,
Absolutely.
hey, can you have this person contact the Friendship Center to do that? We work with Children's Services, because sometimes children are in care, mom and dad might be on the street, and they need to know when there's a thing that involves their child. And so they will come to us and they'll say, hey, if you know this person or that person, can you tell them to get in touch with us? Or they'll actually just give us a message. Can you give them this message?
That's amazing.
And so we'll do that stuff for them too. So there's all these other little things that we do, and we're the only organization that's actually out there 12 hours a day. I get that we're only out till 10 o'clock at night, but man, we start at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're out there, and we're running 3 volunteer shifts at 10, 2, and 6 every day. We have capacity to have between 4 and 6 volunteers every day. That's one of the things I'm really going to do in earnest when we get funding for 2021, is move forward with trying to get to 84 volunteers so I can staff them all. And because I don't want to shrink the size of where we go, because there's something to do in every single one of those areas that we work. There's always somebody to see, somebody to help, somebody to give, even if it's just a pat on the shoulder and say, I'm here. Do you want to talk?
Well, you look at the budget, and it makes me go back to the $500,000 a year. It's a few, let's say four police officers or 60, or what was the number at any given time you've got? So we need to understand
for
that
us,
as well.
it's having those number of people. So we have 4 team leads that are when they're out there and for that 12 hours. But you think about it, so there's almost 2,100 calls that could have been police calls that were averted. A police officer, even if it was just 1 hour per, and it's not, it takes the police a lot longer between calling dispatch, having the call go out, the police officer get there, attend to it, deal with it, write a report, and all the rest of that stuff. But say it's 1 hour per. One full-time equivalent police officer is 2,080 hours, and that's $135,000 for a first-class constable in our community. Which is fairly consistent and common across the country. So at the end of the day, you think about that, where the police officers are being freed up to go in and do that. And we've put in over 5,500 volunteer hours since we started doing this.
That's incredible.
So put a dollar figure on what that's worth to the community for the work that we've done to deal with the 3,600 events that we've dealt with, but the almost 2,100 things that could have been police things, and there's a takeaway for every single one of those people that work at the Watch, whether you're somebody who has a career as a veterinary technician or in automotive sales or in parts or wherever you work, or somebody who wants to be a police officer. There's a takeaway for every single one of those things, and there's a life experience, and there's a risk to them too. Because of course there's the trauma. It's pretty traumatic dealing with somebody with an overdose or any of those other things that they may end up dealing with. But the other piece is the benefit, is the potential to make a friend.
Absolutely.
And to have people. So there's people. My wife laughs about it when I'll see people.
I know what you're going to say. You've told me.
I see them on so one of the street people one time at the Street Wheelers weekend last year when we had it out there. I was out with my grandson. We're walking along. I ran into a couple of guys. One guy actually congratulated me when I got the watch manager's job, and he had a hug for me for that too. But he's walking along, so I called him, brought him back. I introduced him to my grandson. So my grandson had a conversation with him. I don't think my grandson had ever had a conversation with an Indigenous person before. Just old people like me. But at the end of the day, he had a conversation with him. And then about a week or two after that, I ran into him again on the street and was talking to him. He goes, "Thanks for introducing me to your grandson. That meant something."
See, that's
that's even when you look into the Truth and Reconciliation. We are to be teaching our children about Indigenous culture. We are not to, and giving children that experience and having those conversations is huge, because I know my son is, everyone knows who my son is when I do outreach, and it's, how's your son, and the compassion, the love is my son asks is, why is that person still homeless?
Yeah.
Why doesn't that person have a house? And my son's 5, right? So those are
I see that.
conversations that we can start
Absolutely.
with grandkids, with children, and just the community. So Jeff, I just, on behalf of Blaine and I, thank you so much. Thank you for answering some tough questions that we did want to ask, and just let the community know what you do. And again, thank you as always for your service, and also for the volunteers who watch with you.
And also, we will make sure to add on the numbers and stuff of the watch, and we'll put that on as well, so that people have the opportunity to see exactly how to get in touch with yourself or your team. So thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. That's great.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Connecting Your Community with Blaine Higgin and Mallory Christiansen. Join us next time as we continue to discuss community topics and how all of us together can make a difference. Remember, there is no community without unity.